Every writer knows how it feels to look at a blank screen and want to write down your ideas, but just feel stuck. And many of us have gone through that so many times. But what many writers miss in the process is a key element of the writing process, which is brainstorming. In today's video, you'll learn the key reasons why brainstorming is such an important part of the writing process and how you can apply brainstorming techniques to help you to get that creative spark that you are looking for with your own writing journey. Hey y'all, welcome to today's Live with Lisa. If you're new here, my name is Lisa and I create videos that help you learn how to write and live God's way. If you want to honor God with both your life and your writing, this is the place for you. We also go live every week here in partnership with Our Given Purpose Ministries, which is an incredible ministry founded by my dear friend, Tori Slaughter, to help you grow in your walk with God and to get plugged into godly community. So not only can you watch today's live on YouTube and Instagram, but on the Our Given Purpose Ministries Facebook page as well. So make sure you get connected there and learn more about that ministry today. So I know that many of you have been in that process of just being stuck with your work, looking at the page or the blank document and just feeling like your mind goes blank and it's as blank as the screen, right? You just don't know where to start. You have an idea that you want to start with, but the words are just not there. They're just not coming. How many of you have been there? I know I have. And so you are not alone. And I want to make it clear that there is hope and there is strategy for you to move through that process. So today we're going to be getting very practical. We're going to talk about some brainstorming techniques and why brainstorming is such an important part of the writing process that so many writers skip. It is kind of amazing to me how we don't really talk about this as much as I think we probably should. So let's dive right in. First of all, what is brainstorming? Brainstorming is exactly what it sounds like. It is the act of generating ideas for any book that you're working on. And so it can take a variety of different forms, but the common theme is that you have to resist the urge to edit or revise. And that can be the hardest part because so many times as writers, we come up with these ideas and we either want to immediately start working and writing, or we want to kind of tweak and start revising and start looking at what we can improve right away, right? How many of you have been there? I have been there myself. And so that's a common temptation that many writers face, but we have to resist that urge to dive in and start tweaking and editing right away. Brainstorming, the power of it is it allows our minds to just go. It allows our minds to just free flow and to just get out the ideas. And that is what makes it really effective. Another thing that we need to understand about brainstorming is that it can work for a variety of different personalities. I talked in an earlier live stream about the difference between plotters, pantsers, and plantsers. Got twisted with the wording there, but plotters, pantsers, and plantsers, they're very distinct groups, those three groups, and very different based on your writing style and personality. You will probably relate to one of those three groups. So definitely go back and watch that live stream because that will really help you in terms of identifying what writing style works for you. But the quick summary is that plotters tend to be more, they like to plan in advance their books and tend to have more detailed outlines. Whereas pantsers and plantsers might be a little bit looser with just jumping into the writing process. They may have a loose outline, but they're not going to be as detailed as our plotters are going to be. And this is important for us to know, because regardless of what personality type you have, whether you are, very detail oriented, very organized, and want to have a plan in place up front, or you like to kind of go more with the flow and you're a little bit more free-spirited, there is a brainstorming technique that will work for you and will be effective for you. And that's what I love so much about these different techniques that we're going to talk about today, is they are useful for any writer. It doesn't matter what your style is or what you tend to gravitate to. You should be able to find something that will be helpful. Another thing you should know about brainstorming is that these activities are meant to be short. We're talking about like a set period of time, usually 30 minutes or less. Brainstorming is not something that should take hours and hours necessarily. Maybe it can depending on what you're trying to do. But what I like and what I really prefer and I encourage writers to do is to stick with shorter sessions that are 30 minutes or less. You'd be surprised what you can get done in that amount of time, and you'll feel really empowered getting that quick win in early and really just having those ideas laid out for you, and you'll feel like you have a good foundation. So that is something for you to focus on as well. The idea is really to focus your thoughts and your energy so that you can have that creative burst of energy and that empowerment that you're looking for. Again, we're looking to get that quick win to keep us motivated to move forward. And so we want to try and keep brainstorming activities fairly short. And again, I want to emphasize that imperfection is part of the process. This is not about getting things perfect. This is not about trying to have everything ironed out right away. And really, it's important to recognize that, all your ideas are okay at this point, right? We're going to go through them later and refine, and that's a different part of the process. But the important part is really getting your ideas out and making sure that you are, just really trying to get that creativity out as much as possible, because you can go back and refine them later. So that's really important. I want to stress that to kind of hold off on the perfectionism if you can, because it's really going to help you if you really try to just relax and kind of get those ideas out as much as you can. That's going to help you. All right. Let's go into the comments here. Let's see. Okay. So Tori says, yes, I have been there. Yes, with writer's block, it can be so hard to know where to start and you kind of just freeze up. I've talked to a lot of writers that have experienced that. So it's very, very common. Absolutely. And she says, the urge to edit is so strong. I will resist. Awesome. Yeah, that again, very relatable, very common. I have struggled with that myself, especially when you are excited about what you're writing and you want to just dive in, you want to start editing, you want to make those changes. But it really is so important that we take a step back and we wait and we do things in the right order. That editing and those revising phases will come and they are important, but there's a reason why we want to hold off on those until later, because a lot of times what can happen is if you jump into editing and revising too quickly, you will lose momentum. And so you'll start, you have a good flow with ideas, you're getting your ideas out, and then you stop that momentum to start tweaking and moving things around and working with things. And then you kind of lose that flow that you were into. So you want to make sure to try and resist and to hold off on that as much as you can, for sure. All right. And then there is that live stream talking about plotters versus pantsers. Thank you, Tori, for sharing that. Yes, definitely go back and watch that because that will help you for sure and help give you a foundation on what type of writer that you are. Tori says, I didn't enjoy the brainstorming process, but have looked at it as though I am looking for clovers. No bugs and yes to the quick win. I love that. I love that. Yeah, and I can understand, brainstorming can be challenging, especially if it's something that you're not used to doing, or if it's, it just, is more challenging because you want to go into the editing and revising process. I will say this, I have learned that different writers tend to prefer different aspects of the writing process. There are some writers who really, really love drafting. It is just their jam and they really enjoy it and it's fun for them. I have found those tend to be those discovery writers, those pantsers, right? That want to just get in and just get going. That tends to be more fun for them, and that's fine. right? It's just their personality and their temperament. Other writers tend to really enjoy the revision and the editing phases. They love to just polish their work and get it to be the best that it can be, and that's fine too. I tend to really enjoy drafting, but I enjoy different parts of the process for different reasons. And I think it's okay to have a personal preference, but I think the goal, it would be to see the value in each part of the process. Each step has its purpose, and each one is really going to work for your benefit. So I would encourage everyone to really look at different parts of the process, even the ones you might not like as much, and to really, like Tori said, to think about it in a way that really works for you, something that encourages you. I love that example with the clovers and the bugs. That is fun. So, and absolutely, that quick win is what we are looking for. So let's go ahead and get into the different types of brainstorming that we are talking about for today. The different types of brainstorming. The first one I want to talk about is called mind mapping. Mind mapping, and that is a visual technique that really involves you branching your ideas around a central theme or concept. And so I want to show you kind of an example of what this can look like. This is, I just use a good old fashioned piece of paper and, really, kind of old school with it like that. But there's lots of cool technology and lots of really neat programs and different things that you can use to create mind maps. I've seen them in Canva. They're all over the place. You can just do a Google search for mind maps, and you'll find lots of different software that can help you with that. So whether you like to use pen and paper or a digital version, whichever one works best for you. But it is a really great way if you're a visual thinker and you really need to see something visual here, then you're going to create something like this. And so you'll have everything kind of, the central theme is here in the middle, and you have all of your subpoints around it. And that's really going to help you to see visually what your book idea looks like. You'll be able to really start to see categories of aspects of your book. This works well for nonfiction or fiction. All of these different techniques do. So that's really something that can be helpful for you if you're especially a visual thinker. So for example, if I wanted to do something like this for gardening, let's say I'm writing a book about gardening, right? One of the subpoints might be the different tools that I would need to start a garden, right? Another subpoint might be the different climates that you can grow different fruits and vegetables and flowers in, right? That could be another subpoint. You could have another one talking about, where you buy your supplies and what kind of supplies you need, and how to deal with pests, right? Different things like that. And so you would have all these different ideas around your main point in the center, and that will help you kind of start to see, you'll start to see patterns, you'll start to see just different ideas that you can kind of group together. And I use this technique all the time for my own projects that I'm working on. What I find is to be especially helpful is to have different mind maps for different aspects of the story, for different aspects of the book. So if I'm writing fiction, if I'm working on something that's fiction, I might have different mind maps for different characters, for example, or for the overall plot of the book. And in nonfiction, you could do the same thing, have a mind map for the different themes that you're working on. There's a lot of ways that you can play around with it and do different things with it. And I think that can be incredibly helpful if that's something that you want to work on and that's something that works well for you. So that is one technique, that is mind mapping. The second technique is called free writing. Now, this is very straightforward. It's really just a simple technique where you're just writing continuously, just getting all of your ideas out. You're not worried about spelling, grammar. You're not trying to be super organized with it. You can jump around to different parts of the book that you're working on. And so it's really very, straightforward. I have kind of an example here that I just used on a piece of paper. This would be an example of a book about freelance writing, right? Which is something that I've done for years. And so I just wrote about how I got started in freelance writing, for example, right? And so you could abbreviate if you want with it. There's a lot of different, things that you can get into with your book if just using the free writing example. And again, the key here is to not think about editing, revising, organizing, any of that. You're just getting out your ideas as much as possible. What makes this different from drafting is that you're not trying to tell the story of your book necessarily. You're just writing about what comes to mind and things that you might want to talk about. So you could just have like lists of phrases, right? Things that you want people to think about when they think about your book. You could talk about who your potential audience is and start brainstorming those types of things. You don't have to just keep it strictly to what is going to be in the book that people will be reading about. So I want to differentiate between free writing and drafting because drafting is really focused on the actual content of the book itself. But free writing, you can play around with it a lot more and you can explore a lot more in terms of different things that are related to the book and just different ideas that you're trying to, again, just get out those ideas as much as possible. So that is another example. Again, I just wrote a few lines here, just talking about my own journey with freelance writing, how I got into it. And that is just an example of what free writing can look like. All right. And then let's see. The third example is what is called list making. And this is another technique where you will jot down ideas. You're really just like it sounds, you're making lists, right? And so you're really separating things into categories. You're going to have, if you're writing something that's fiction, for example, you might have a list of themes, a list of the characters, a list of the different plot points in the book, a list of the settings, and you have things kind of separated into different lists, right? And so, I have an example of that here where you just have for a potential devotional, right? You would just talk about the different themes for the devotional, you could have a list talking about the different characters in the Bible, different people in the Bible that you want to talk about for a devotional, some of the different ideas that you want to explore and things like that. But you're separating it into categories and you want to make sure that you are just having those lists. Again, it's just a different way of breaking up the information. And so whichever one of these you want to try, I think that they all achieve different things in terms of how we can generate ideas and what those ideas can look like. And so it's important for you to recognize that one of these is not necessarily better than the other. They're all just different. And so whatever your personal choice is, whatever your personal preference is, you want to choose the method that works for you. And so, yeah, let's go into the comments here quickly. All right, Tori says, there is something about putting pen to paper, and the beauty of technology is that we can scan it and make it a Google or Word doc later. Listen, I love the tech tip, Tori. Thank you so much. That is an awesome. Yes. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Yes. So even if you are like me, you're a little bit more old school, you like to write things down, you like to have your lists and all these different things, you can scan it. You can make it a Google Doc or a Word doc later, just like Tori said. And so if you are, depending on, again, your preference, whether you are into more technology or you just prefer kind of the old school way, totally fine. There's lots of flexibility here with these different ideas and these different techniques. So your homework for today is to choose one of the 3 techniques that we discussed today and to spend at least 20 minutes brainstorming about it. So just to recap, we covered mind mapping, which is, again, one of these where you're just going to have that main point and have it surrounded by all of the subpoints for your book. And you can do that for fiction or nonfiction. We also have free writing, which is just going to be you writing just freestyle as whatever comes to mind, whatever thoughts or ideas you have about your book. And again, that's different from drafting because we have more creativity and more room to explore in terms of just whatever comes to mind about your book. And then lastly, we have the list making example where you separate your book into different categories and different lists and list ideas based on each category. And so again, try all three different activities, see if they're helpful, but you start with one and see which one might work best for you. And I hope that it is a blessing to you and that it really encourages you in the writing process. So let's go to comments one more time. Tori says, thank you. This was helpful as always. Awesome, Tori. I'm so glad that it is helpful. And I hope that it is helpful and a blessing for many of you all who are working on your different projects. I want to encourage you today that just with this process, that there is that you don't have to be just kind of frozen in the writing process. When you sit down to write, brainstorming really is going to help you, find a place to start and just to kind of get those gears going. So don't be discouraged if if it doesn't come to you quickly or easily immediately. It might be something that you just need to try different techniques and see what works best for you. Or it might mean that you just need to try it a couple of times and see if you are find some success with given the parameters that I'm talking about. It may be that you tried brainstorming, but you did it for a little bit too long, or you tried the wrong technique, or you were trying to edit and revise as you go. So make sure that you are taking all of this information into consideration in the process of brainstorming. And I believe that it will help you. It will give you that motivation to keep going, and it will help get you started and get that creative spark that you are looking for. So that is it for today's live. If you found this information helpful and you want to learn more about how to write and live God's way, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, share this video with someone who could use some really practical techniques to help you in your writing process. And thank you so much again for watching. Make sure to leave a comment below letting me know what you are working on and what questions you have about the writing process and about writing God's way. I would love to help in any way that I can. So I will see you next week in the next live with Lisa, same time, same place, and I hope that you are blessed. Until next time, happy writing, y'all.